moment there at the White House. The President of the United States, not on one issue, but on two issues, saying the head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Dr. Robert Redfield, didn't understand a question as he was testifying today before Congress, didn't know what he was saying, was simply wrong on two very critically important issues: a potential vaccine that could save lives here in the United States, indeed around the world, and on the effectiveness of masks. Dr. Sanjay Gupta is with us right now. Sanjay, we need to go at length and discuss this. I've been a reporter for a long time. I don't know about you, but I don't remember a time where the President of the United States comes out to a briefing and basically suggests that the head of the CDC doesn't know what he's talking about. It was a pretty remarkable moment indeed. And I want to just start off on the vaccine development. I'm going to play the clip. Here's the exchange that Dr. Redfield had in Congress today, the question he was asked and his answer. Listen to this.
Tell me when you think we'll have a vaccine, as best you can, ready to administer to the public, Dr. Redfield.
Well, I think as Dr. Cadillac said, I think there will be vaccine that initially be available sometime between November and December, but very limited supply and will have to be prioritized. If you're asking me when is it going to be generally available to the American public so we can begin to take advantage of vaccine to get back to our regular life, I think we're probably looking at late second quarter, third quarter, 2021.
So, Sanjay, it sounded like he fully understood the question. He had a specific answer. The President of the United States says he gave incorrect information. I believe he was confused and basically suggested he didn't know what he was talking about. And he said he called Dr. Redfield earlier today and told him that. But what you know, Dr. Redfield, and you understand what's going on. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the President directly contradicted Dr. Redfield. I can tell you, I also spoke to Moncef Slaoui, who is the head of Operation Warp Speed, the chief advisor to Operation Warp Speed, and the numbers, and this is from their documents, we can put up some of these numbers. This is, again, directly from Operation Warp Speed in terms of when the vaccine is likely to be available. And what Moncef Slaoui says and what Dr. Redfield say are much more in line. So here is a vaccine, vaccine A, vaccine B. They're not naming them here. We have a pretty good idea that they're referring to the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines. Those are the two trials that are further along. And Wolf, you can read that there. If it might be a little small to read. Basically, they say by the end of the year, potentially 20 to 30 million doses of the one, 15 million doses of the other. So 30 to 45 million doses. And then they say they will scale up from there. Potentially 300 million doses within a few months after that, and potentially 800 million doses by August. Now, one thing I should remind people of is that both of those vaccines require 2 doses, right? So, if you're talking about 300 million doses by the first quarter of 2021, that's for 150 million people. And we know, and I was just doing the calculations here, that there's essentially 25 million essential workers in this country and 79 million people who would be considered high risk. That's who would be covered in that sort of first large dose of vaccine by the first quarter of 2021. It's not the general public. And again, I'm not making this up. This is coming from Operation Warp Speed. This is the documents that were released to the states in terms of vaccine distribution. And those are the numbers that they're sort of citing. So again, 30 to 45 million doses potentially by the end of the year. And you got to half that number, right? Because it's 2 doses. So 15 to 20 million people potentially vaccinated by the end of the year, and going up to 100 million or so by, the first quarter of 2021. The question Caitlin Collins asked, other reporters asked, what does this mean for the general public? And it really does squarely put that sort of in, the second quarter of 2021 before the general public could start to really get vaccinated, if these vaccines are even approved.
Yeah, and maybe by the summer. So when the President said that Dr. Redfield made a mistake, he provided incorrect information, I believe he was confused. The President clearly was wrong, right?
Well, I mean, so if what the president is saying is right, that means Dr. Redfield is wrong, that means Operation Warp Speed is wrong, that means the vaccine manufacturers are all wrong, because again, this is their documentation, Wolf. The documents, the numbers we just put up there are the numbers that are coming from the distribution plan for this vaccine from Operation Warp Speed, which is part of the federal government. So, you know, it's a challenging process, you know, to create these vaccines, and then to go from 30 million doses to 300 million doses, to scale that up tenfold, is a laborious process. They anticipate they can do it quickly, and those are very, very rapid, you know, sort of, you know, calendar as it is, but it still takes time. And I think that's why they're saying sort of first quarter to get to that 300 million number, which again, would mean probably 150 million people because of the 2 doses, Wolf.
And Sanjay, on the other issue where he said that Dr. Redfield, the head of the CDC, was confused, didn't know what he was talking about, was on the issue of masks. I'm going to play the clip of what Dr. Redfield testified today before Congress on why he says wearing a mask may actually be more important in saving Americans' lives than getting a potential vaccine. Listen to this.
Is rejecting this emphatic advice that you give repeatedly and you yourselves demonstrate. Dr. Redfield, your comment?
I'm not going to comment directly about the president, but I am going to comment as the CDC director that face masks, these face masks are the most important, powerful public health tool we have. And I will continue to appeal for all Americans, all individuals in our country, to embrace these face coverings. I've said it, if we did it for 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks, we'd bring this pandemic under control. These actually, we have clear scientific evidence, they work, and they are our best defense. I might even go so far as to say that this face mask is more guaranteed to protect me against COVID than when I take a COVID vaccine.
And the president of the United States said the masks, they're a mixed bag. He said that take a look at waiters who are wearing it. They may be touching them, then touching a plate and giving some food to some people. The president said he was confused again, didn't understand the question, and was effectively making things up. He's referring to the head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Sanjay.
Yeah, again, the president directly contradicting what the head of the CDC said. I've never seen anything like it, Wolf. You know, when it comes to masks, I think the point that Dr. Redfield was making, he sort of made 3 points in there, but this idea overall that a face mask, if you had near universal compliance, would dramatically bring down the trajectory of this viral spread, I think is pretty well shown by evidence. We can show this, you know, Wolf, you've seen this before. Look at countries around the world, compare them to the United States in terms of what's happened with the overall viral spread. If we have that, we can show, again, what did these countries have, such as South Korea, such as Italy, that we didn't have? They had no vaccine, obviously. They don't have therapeutics that we don't have. They wore masks and they tested people. You know, the 2 issues that we're really talking about here. It obviously made a significant difference. And you know, I mean, I think these numbers sort of speak for themselves. I should also point out, Wolf, that the vaccine that may get authorized this fall, the FDA may only require that it be 50% effective. 50% effective. If you had near universal mask compliance, that means everybody would be getting some protection. So I think that's what Dr. Redfield is trying to say, but again, completely contradicted by the president.
Yeah, because Dr. Redfield was saying what Dr. Fauci told me last week when he was here with us in the Situation Room, that if it's 70 or even 75% effective, that means 25 or 30% of those who get a shot, get the vaccine, 2 shots probably going to be necessary. They're going to have a serious problem still, potentially coming down with coronavirus. Whereas Dr. Redfield said today, if you wear a mask, if everybody's wearing a mask, it's going to be 95 or 100% effective in preventing individuals from coming down with coronavirus and potentially getting very, very sick and dying. I want to get Dana Bash into this conversation. Dana, it was a pretty extraordinary moment, and I'm being polite right now, to hear the President of the United States suggest on these 2 very critical, important issues that the head of the CDC effectively is wrong.
Well, what we just saw and heard from the President of the United States was propaganda. There's really no other way to say it. It was propaganda, plain and simple. He wants things to be a certain way for his own political agenda, and he is saying science be damned. And on both of those issues, it was remarkable to see him throw his CDC director under the bus, his CDC director who was testifying under oath earlier in the day. He clearly wasn't happy with him. He admitted that he called and chastised Dr. Redfield. But it is really remarkable. And the way I see it right now is the CDC director has two options. Number one, to fall on a sword and try to find a way out of it, or two, to defend science, to defend reality, and say, I'm not working for you anymore. I can't work under these circumstances, and that would send a big signal. I don't know what he's going to do. Maybe he'll come out and say, you know, I misspoke, but it's hard to imagine that, because if you watch him like we did today, and you just played the clips again, he really understood the questions, and he knew what he was doing, holding up that mask. He knew that he was intentionally trying to fact check and correct the President of the United States after last night he made some misleading comments, very misleading comments about masks, which the President again repeated today. He's out there saying that he doesn't believe that masks are effective. Well, he's not a doctor. Why don't you listen to the scientists who say so? And if he does believe that people aren't using masks well, use that podium, use your bully pulpit to explain how to do that. Don't touch your face, things like that. And we've seen so many of these events now, unfortunately, Wolf, and had to comment on them afterwards. And this was something that really took my breath away, and I know you probably feel the same way.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And once again, the president, Dana, you heard the president make fun of Joe Biden for wearing a mask.
Right.
Why is he wearing a mask? He comes out, nobody is near him, he's still wearing a mask. Well, maybe Joe Biden wants to wear a mask to set an example
That's
to
exactly
the
why he's
American
doing
people. It's critically important, not just for yourself, but everybody you come into contact with. You could save lives by the thousands, by the tens of thousands, if you wear a mask. I want to bring in Jim Acosta, our chief White House correspondent. Jim, the president was also very upbeat. What a great job he's done, and the administration has done over these past 6 months in dealing with this coronavirus, as we now approach 200,000 deaths here in the United States over these past 6 months. And he was saying no one has done it better. It's fabulous for all practical purposes. Well, it's not fabulous. 1,200 Americans died yesterday.
That's right, Wolf. I mean, instead of doing fact-checking after these news conferences, you could almost do truth-checking, because it would take you less time to pull out the true statements from President Trump at these press conferences. It was just falsehood after falsehood after half-truth after falsehood. That was the case again this evening. The president was saying just a few moments ago, to your point, Wolf, that by Election Day, the coronavirus will be very low in this country. Wolf, as you just mentioned, we had almost 1,300 people die from the coronavirus in this country yesterday. It's hard to imagine how those numbers could get down to a very low level over the next couple of months, especially when you have all the experts projecting that perhaps we could double the number of dead in the United States by early next year. And getting back to what you were saying about Dr. Redfield being contradicted by the president, not only on a vaccine timeline, but on masks, it is important to note this is not the first time the president has done this with his health experts. He's done this with Dr. Anthony Fauci in the past. He is once again throwing one of his top health experts under the bus. I mean, that is what he did with Dr. Robert Redfield. And we're just going to have to find out whether or not Dr. Redfield surfaces and confirms what the president said, that he told the president that he misspoke earlier today. That will be news if he comes out and says that. And the other thing, Wolf, we should point out, I mean, during this press conference, the president sort of has, you know, a go-to. And when he gets into trouble, he goes to a subject that sort of bails him out on the previous subject. And he did that again on mail-in voting. And I know we fact-checked this so many times, but in recent weeks, Ben Ginsburg, who is a longtime Republican election lawyer for GOP campaigns going all the way back to Bush v. Gore, just recently put out an op-ed saying there is no proof of widespread fraud. It bears repeating, Wolf, because as we air these news conferences, the president is not just coming up with new lies, he's recycling old ones. Wolf?
Yeah, that was really, we could go on. Several other issues came up as well, but when he publicly humiliates the head of the CDC on these two sensitive issues, that was an extraordinary moment. Daniel Dale is with us, our CNN reporter and fact checker. You were listening very closely, Daniel, as you always do. What did you think?
Just so much lying, Wolf. Again, over and over we get this. The president said that masks are a mixed bag with a lot of problems. There was an overwhelming scientific consensus that masks are effective and critical. Again, a flurry of false claims, you can call them lies, on mail-in voting, wrongly saying Nevada's Democratic governor controls the ballots. The state secretary of state is a Republican. Again, falsely saying there was fraud in a New York primary featuring Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. He wrongly said the Iran deal would be practically expiring now. Some provisions did sunset in 2025, 2030, but some go all the way to 2040. Others continue in perpetuity. He wrongly said there's a poll that shows 84% of black people want more police. In fact, in that poll, 20% said more police, 61% they want the same. He accused Biden of promoting anti-vaccine theories. Biden has not gone anti-vaxxer. He said he does not trust the word of Trump, but would encourage people to take a vaccine approved by scientists. He repeated his usual false claim about being left no ventilators. His own administration has admitted they inherited more than 16,000. And he is, I'll stop there. Wolf, it's again just so much. It's a flurry of falsehood every single time the president comes to that podium at the White House.
Well,